You're unmuted.
Mr. Conover,
Yes.
your committee is present, you have a quorum, and we're ready to go whenever you are.
Oh, thank you. Welcome, everyone, to the Public Works Committee meeting. We'll start off by, you should all have received minutes of the previous meeting. Chair will entertain a motion regarding the minutes of the previous meeting. Mr. Dickinson.
Second.
Mr. Thomas, Frank, was that you on the second?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Ready for the question. All those in favor of approving the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. How do you want to start today, Kevin? Parks and Rec?
We can start with Parks and Rec.
Okay, good. Then without objection, we'll move right into Parks and Rec. What do we have here, Kevin?
So the first item on the agenda is I received some correspondence from Revolution Rail. They were looking to amend their existing contract to use both the Hadley and the Thurman stations. They're used in the track in those areas, but they did not have as part of their agreement to use those stations. So they have offered a fee of $500 per station per month for both those stations.
Okay, I'm sure there are going to be a number of questions here. So Chair will entertain a motion to bring this to the floor for consideration. Mr. Dickinson on the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Thomas on the second. Thank you, everyone. Questions for Kevin Hajos? Mr. Dickinson? Got to unmute yourself, Dennis.
How's that?
That's good.
I understand from past conversations, these two facilities are empty, Kevin?
That's correct, they are.
We have no other use for them?
No, we don't at this time.
No, $1,000 a month sounds good to me.
Any other questions? Andrea?
I don't think it was $1,000 a month. Was it, Kevin? Is that what you said?
Two stations at 500, I think it's 1,000.
Yeah, it's $1,000 a month to run from May through November.
Oh, it was a month. Okay.
It's $500.
That's even better.
500 each.
Frank, did you have a question?
Yeah, is that plus utilities or including utilities?
That would include them to pay all the utilities on each one of those facilities.
Chairman Conover,
Yes.
I have a question.
Yes, go right ahead.
You know what they're going to do with them? Are they going to use them to sell tickets or?
I think mainly that's what they're going to use them to stage from out of those stations. And I think for both those stations, it would be from Thurman heading south and then from Hadley heading south as well. So they're going to stage them as their sort of a ticket booth down there in that section.
So they'll take care of removing all the rubbish and everything.
That's
Nothing
correct.
will pile up.
Yep.
Okay.
Good. Any issues, Kevin, from their utilizing this part of the track last year?
Good. Not whatsoever.
Good, good. Any other questions for Mr. Hajos? There being none, are we ready for the question then? All those in favor of authorizing and approving this request signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Do you want to go right into the bike path, Kevin?
Actually, I'd like to skip it real quick. I have Karen Beatty online. Karen is our director up at Up Yonder Farms, and I'd like her to kind of go over with all of you the Maple Festival days and the winter snowshoeing that we did up there this winter. So, Chairman Conover, if you would allow Karen to.
Sure, of course, without objection. Karen, go right ahead.
You're on mute, Karen. Well, if you want to move on, we can wait till Karen gets on and I can move into a couple of the other things that we're proposing for Up Yonder Farm. In
Go
your
right
pack,
ahead.
in your packet, you will see kind of a plan. It's not very clear, showing the proposed walkway and gardens. Friends of Up Yonder Farm are looking to apply for a grant or get some donations to do a path around the wetlands in the I guess I want to say the west side of the pond. I'm not opposed to this. I think it would be a great addition to Up Yonder Farms. Again, you'll see it's a proposed walkway, and again, they're doing it through possible grant funding and donations. So I just wanted to make everybody aware of that. The other thing you see on the page after that is the interpretive sign that's up on the top of our hill at Up Yonder Farms. This is a newer sign. The one that's up there needed a little bit of updating. So Friends of Up Yonder Farm is working with the sign maker to update this sign at no cost to the county, of course. And we will, once the sign is complete, Up Yonder staff and Parks and Rec staff will install that sign and take the old one down.
Well, Kevin, I'm sure I speak for everyone. I hope we can get them a thank you letter for everything that they're doing. And they're a great group and doing some wonderful things at Up Yonder Farm.
Absolutely.
Any questions for Kevin regarding the proposed improvements at Up Yonder? There being none now. Karen, are you all set or not quite? One more second, okay.
There, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Sorry about that. I wasn't working on my computer, so I switched. Maple Festival, because of COVID this year, we couldn't do our pancake breakfast that we normally do. So we switched to doing a Maple Festival, and we had 12 programs a day for 2 Saturdays. And had 8 to 12 people per program. And we brought in a little over $1,500 for 2 days of people, 184 people. And then we also had 4 days of homeschool programs where we just had 2 programs a day. And we brought in about 73 people with that. So, it was very successful. We brought in more people and more money than what we normally do with just the pancake breakfast. We'll be a little bit behind for March because we don't have schools coming to us, but the Maple Festival did pretty well overall, I think. So, and we got good feedback from it as well. And our snowshoeing event is the first time we tried that. And we started in January with just Saturdays. And then we moved to Saturdays and Sundays in February. We were booked every single day that we were open for snowshoeing. We sold out, and we did... we had more people and more money come in February than we ever have in the past, even with school groups. So that was a really big plus for us. So that we'll probably do again, maybe lessen the schedule a little bit. We were doing 4 programs a day with 2 staff. So we'll probably knock that down to 3 next year. But that was both really good programs for us this year. So, which is good considering COVID, we have no schools coming. So, any questions?
Just, I think the snowshoeing program, I think, was very timely and it was extremely well received. You might want to give the committee an indication of how many available snowshoes you had for rent. So I guess
so we had about 50 to, I'm not exactly sure how many snowshoes, but we have at least 50 pairs of snowshoes. We ran the programs, 8 to 12 people in a session, to keep it COVID friendly and spread out. But then we also rented snowshoes on the side when we weren't doing the programs. People could still rent snowshoes and go out on their own. And that was big too. I think with COVID, a lot of people were looking to get out and rent. So it was good.
Yeah.
Yep. Any other questions?
Any questions for Karen?
Supervisor Conover, I just wanted, Karen, can you, thank you for giving the update on the Maple Festival. Can you actually tell them what people did at the Maple Festival?
Absolutely. Yeah. The Maple Festival, usually we have a pancake breakfast and people come, and we have the sugar house open. For Maple Festival, what we did this year was we had stations outside, and we guided people through the stations. So it was a combination of science and history. We started with tapping and temperature and kind of what makes the sap run. And then we would go to a station that was set up for Native Americans and how maple syruping sort of got started, and some Native American stories. Then we moved on to up in history to European settlers and how they did some differences and added to the process, and eventually ending with our sugar house and the boiling operation and how it's kind of been updated over the years. And then we added with some sampling, some tasting.
Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
What's next, Kev?
Next item we have on there is but we'll go back to A, which is signs for the bike path. We have Harrison Freer on board, which is the ADK Cycling Advocates. They're proposing to kind of brand our bike path with some different signing, as well as clean up some of the signing that's out there. So I want to turn it over to Harrison because I think he can speak to it. But I've talked with him a couple times on this. His group met with me as far as some of the signs that they want to change or move. I'm in agreement with them. You know, when we put the signs up for the bike path, at the time they were put up, you know, things have changed probably since then, so they probably need a little bit of updating. So without objection, I would turn it over to Harrison.
Sure, Harrison, welcome. Take off your mute so we can hear you. That would be, there you go.
Okay.
Sure.
So, hello, and thank you for having me. I have a PowerPoint because it's about signs, and so I wanted to put some pictures up.
Sure.
I think you guys probably have a copy of, and if not, I can get it to you. But I'm going to try if I can share the screen on my. Looks like it's allowing me to share. I hope. So. Here's a quick briefing. I'm going to skim a bunch of slides at Kevin's request and in the interest of time, because a lot of it was put together in more detail than you guys care about. But I'm representing the Adirondack Cycling Advocates, formerly a long alphabet soup name. Here's a quick overview of what we're going to talk about. Again, I'm going to spend most of my time on 3 or 4 of the 20 slides, the bikeway branding, the You Are Here signs, and then some pavement signs that we think will improve the bikeway. In terms of motivation, you know, lots of inputs that people get confused on the bikeway. We had a Bicycles Bring Business event that we had held at the Queensberry Hotel that was shared by many of the stakeholders, and that was an impetus for Lloyd Mott to keep pushing to get additional and better signage on the bikeway. Also, signs are evolving. Icons and symbols are replacing words in this 2021 day. And we're seeing a lot of people come up here who aren't familiar with the bike path, as many of us locals are. So this is an effort, and I'll have to compliment JP Foscano from Bolton, who has done most of the work that you're going to see. So there's a lot of good signs on the bikeway right now. The county does an amazing job of maintaining the bikeway, but there is confusion, as I mentioned earlier. So that's what we're trying to address. So I have a whole bunch of signs that show the confusion. If you saw this sign, you'd think you were on 6.7 miles of the feeder canal trail, but you're really on the bikeway at 149. So this is just an example. And again, most of these pictures were taken by JB up in, who's from Bolton, who rides the bikeway and is a big bike rider. So I'm going to go through, there's another one that's incorrect. Another one that's confusing, and the middle one is incorrect. Lack of signage here between the bikeway and getting over to the feeder canal down in Glens Falls. I briefed Joe Gerard on this as well, DPW, and he's aware and is willing and wants to work with us on this. Again, lack of signage here. And we do have still some good signs. This is, kind of 20 years ago, signs of what's going on with bike trails in Warren County, but we think there's room for improvement. So recommendations, we really think that distinctive branding is useful. Many of you know the Empire Trail. New York State has done that, and there's really a need for "You Are Here" signs so that we can make the bikeway second to none. In terms of getting lost, like you're at Disney World. And then on pavement signs seem to be something that may be very useful for us with the bikeway and that connection on the south side of the bikeway. So here's two examples, but the one on the right, the Empire State sign, is the newest one. And that's what the group has done in terms of recommendation. So this is a distinctive bikeway branding sign that we believe is beneficial to improve the bikeway. And again, we've talked to several other organizations, and this is sort of a cooperative group, but any feedback from the supervisors on branding the bikeway like this would be useful to us so that, we can continue to build a consensus moving forward. The second topic is "You Are Here" signs. Here's an example of a modified one that you saw earlier. And if the next couple slides, I've broken it with a little bit more detail. So let me go to the next slide and talk a little bit about the fact that no dogs or no motorized vehicles is more representative of emojis or whatever you want to call it, graphics. And then there's really quite a bit of confusion even on whether walkers should be stay right or stay left. So in this example, it says stay right if you're walking on the bike path. So the questions are, how many do we need? What level of detail? This is the next step in terms of getting some graphics help to support this. And I will say that if you look in the lower left corner, you see our new branding for the Adirondack Cycling Organization. And we have some funding to put toward sign design and production. So some of that cost our organization is prepared to get involved in. The third sort of piece of this is on pavement signage. You've seen some of these around. We don't have any on the bikeway currently. And there's state rules about how much curbside you need and all of that. This is actually northbound on Bay Road, but the bikeway on Country Club, we would look at either this one or even this is when you don't have enough curbside. And this is called a Sharrow. And again, Country Club possibly, and down through McDonald Street in Glens Falls to get to the feeder canal would be our recommendation. So I've gone fast, but part of this is just to let you guys know what we're doing and get any feedback that you might have. If there's specific design things we're going to work through. And we're looking at funding opportunities and constraints. And briefing you guys is part of the task. The last group is who we've briefed so far. And with that, I can take any questions that people might have.
Any questions for Harrison?
This is Supervisor Bruno. This isn't a question, but I just want to say I like the branding sign for the bike trail. I think it's good. Like matches the Empire Trail colors. I think it's a great idea.
I would agree, and I would also say I very much like the "You Are Here" signs. You know, especially for people that aren't familiar with the area, and then they have a sense of how far they need to go or how far they've gone, and it's or how
Yeah,
far
so
they
there,
can go.
yeah, I skipped over a couple of the other enhancements. You know, mileage signs. But there's mission creep here, and we're a volunteer organization, so trying to get the highlights of those three main things. The "You Are Here" sign will obviously have some mileage distance capabilities, but I appreciate your time and any feedback that folks have in terms of, we're seeing a lot of cycling, as everyone knows. I'm not sure the bike shops around town are, I'm hearing that their supply of inventory is even out of gas in terms of, but I'm sure we'll see a lot more biking this summer, just like we did last summer. And this is all part of, making this a county, a biking destination, which our group is committed to.
Yeah.
I think the bike trail is a great asset, and anything you can do to enhance it is time and money well spent.
Thank you.
I agree, and thank you for taking the time to put together this PowerPoint presentation. Kevin, if this presentation didn't go out to the whole board, would you move it along to the whole board?
I will.
Thank you. Thank you. Just to make sure the whole board has the presentation. And
Mr. Chairman, Mike Wild.
Mike, go right ahead, Mike.
Well, thank you. And Harrison, good morning and thanks. I've got to kind of give some kudos out to my family. Those historical signs were done by my son, Ryan, for his Eagle project. And I'm just curious, I haven't had a chance to see many of them in the last year or so. Are they still in good shape?
I would say yes. I only live, yes, they're actually a huge benefit to the bikeway, and the work that's been done there on the Bay Road bikeway intersection with getting the Mullen building down is another, I think, big opportunity. So all the folks that push that forward, we'll see what happens there, but anything was better than what was there before. I just live a block away from there. So, but yeah, the historical signs, I think, are as good as I've seen on any kind of trail like that.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Harrison, thank you for joining us this morning.
Okay, my pleasure. And again, anybody have any more feedback after you see them, and we'll probably go to design for a "You Are Here" sign that's simpler than the one I demonstrated. We're working with a couple of graphics folks, and we'll work with Kevin and his organization.
Excellent. Excellent. And thank you and your organization for all that you do, really.
Okay, appreciate it.
Yep. Okay, Kevin, what do we have next?
Well, I had a couple more things that weren't on my agenda, but it actually kind of leads to what Supervisor Bruno said, an enhancement of the bike trail, as well as what Supervisor Wild said as far as Boy Scout and Eagle projects. So I was approached by a Boy Scout in the area, actually happens to be our Senator's son. Senator Steck's son, Peter, would like to do an Eagle project. His Eagle project, which he hasn't presented to his troop yet, is to do a memorial for the COVID victims in Warren County. He came to me looking for places that he could do kind of a memorial garden. May involve some tree planting, some benches, he was talking about flowers. I convinced him probably to go to perennial shrubs and perennial flowers, something that, after the first year getting established, they wouldn't need to really do much except our staff would do the maintenance on them. So I had provided him a couple different locations. I provided him the Warren County Fish Hatchery up beyond the farm, as well as along the bike path in certain areas. He's actually chosen, which I think it's a good area, to either side of the Quaker Road Bridge approach. We have some grass areas in there that he could do one of these memorial gardens. Right now, he's asked me, and I'm kind of having him work with soil and water as to the proper type of trees and or shrubs that he should plant within that area. But these would be small gardens. As I said, he still has to present this to his troop. But I think it's a great plan that he's looking to do. And I'm not necessarily, we need approval, but I would like to just kind of get everybody's buy-in on, Peter being able to do his Eagle project along the bike path.
Any comments on that from anyone?
I think it's a great idea. Sounds good.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would agree. How can you not support that type of initiative from a young man?
The last thing I have to go along with what Supervisor Bruno said is enhancement of the bike path, and it is an asset to Warren County. And I was reached out to by Peter Wilhelm of the Rotary Club of Lake George, and he has a group of volunteers that would like to assist the county in cleaning up our bike path for our typical spring cleanup. Normally my staff, does all this. They're probably starting as of right now. They would fill out the volunteer forms that we have, but they would like to assist us to cleaning up the bike path. And I think he would like to put out a press release. And I think they want to do it the last week of April, beginning of May, to assist us. And I thought it was a great idea. And again, just looking for, kind of buy-in from the committee to be able to do that as well.
Yeah, I don't know that any action is required there, but I think, Kevin, you should just, whatever material you receive, you should get that to Amanda so that she can distribute that to all of the supervisors and any involved or affected departments, just so everybody's aware of what's going on. So no one's caught off guard. All right?
Will do. I believe the last thing we have on there is the referral or pending items. Supervisor Conover had asked me to contact the county attorney regarding general liability issues regarding snowmobile crossings. I updated the committee last month saying that basically, any snowmobile use on our railroad, permitted use, they have to have the proper signage in place when they come to any intersection of road. They have to put stop signs up. We require them to do this, but I believe Supervisor Hogan had asked Mrs. Cassane whether or not the county was liable since they didn't have sign posted in certain areas. And those are, I just want to touch base on this before, maybe Mary has something to say. Those are areas of our track where Supervisor Hogan might have seen snowmobilers up north in the Johnsburg area, which that is not permitted up there. In reality, I believe they would be considered trespassing, but that's why there's no signs in place, but I will turn that over to Mary.
Yeah, so we'd basically be doing the same analysis that we're doing in the estate of Taylor case. So although they are trespassing, if it's if it's something, an attractive nuisance and we don't have signs, that might be something that's analyzed in a court case. I mean, I think we're always going to be named a party in a suit if something happens. It's just a matter of how well we can defend ourselves. So Kevin and I might need to get together and talk about the use of signs or maybe no trespassing signs or something along those lines, just to make sure that if we are ever brought into litigation, we do have a solid defense.
Thank you for looking into that.
Thank you. Thank you, Mary. Anything else, Kevin?
Nothing more.
Okay. Anything to be brought before the committee relative to Parks and Rec? There being none, we'll move on to Public Works. Is that all right, Kevin?
Sure.
Okay. should all have your Public Works agenda in front of you. What's the first item we have here, Kevin?
So we'll go right into action agenda items. The first one on there is a notice to fill a vacant position of an MEO light. As you'll see on the second page, this is somebody who was promoted. So this would be to backfill that position.
Alrighty. Chair will entertain a motion. Andrea? On the motion, Dennis on the second. Discussion?
Can I move 1 through 4 together?
You can. Dennis, are you agreeable with that? On your second? Okay. Then the motion is to approve 1 through 4. Any discussion on 1 through 4? There being none, are we ready for the question? All those in favor of approving 1 through 4 signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item 5, Kevin.
This is from the treasurer's budget analysis report. This was a couple of projects that they requested us to close. And then the second one, which is to increase the capital project, that's one of the projects that didn't have a deficit in it. We had to cover that. So we were closing the projects, returning them to their fund source, and then taking some of that money and covering the deficit, which was approximately $2,000 for the County Route 44 bridge project.
Okay. A motion to bring this forward. Mr. Dickinson on the motion.
Second.
Do we have second? Andrea on the second. Any discussion? There being none, are we ready for the question? All those in favor of approving the project closure signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Item 6, Kevin.
6 is just to take some of the money that was put to those funding sources to cover the deficit in that one project, which was the County Route 44 bridge project.
Okay, this is a related one. Motion, Mr. Dickinson, second. Second on the motion. Andrea, thank you. Ready for the question. All those in favor of approving item 6 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Aye.
Item 7.
The next item on there is to create a reserve account. As you all know, we took possession of the brine machine last year with the assistance of some of the towns who contributed and the grant that the planning department had. We had more than enough money to purchase the brine machine, but we also had some leftover money, which we are asking to put that into a reserve account for any maintenance that may be needed or repairs that are needed to that brine making machine.
All right, let's bring this forward for discussion.
I'll make that motion, Supervisor Merlino.
Gene, thank you, Gene. Second, Mr. Dickinson, discussion. I'd like to hear from a few of the supervisors. It worked out beautifully in Bolton. How about over there in Luzerne, Gene?
All right, it's worked out really well, and we're starting to spend some money on our own to get the tanks and put it in reserve. Everybody's really surprised on how well it worked, and we're putting a little more money in for next year. Thank you.
Terrific. Any other comments or questions for Kevin? There being none, are we ready for the question then? All those in favor of creating this reserve account for the salt signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item 8.
So the next two items are associated with one another. The first one is to establish a road project for the EWR money, which is the extreme winter recovery money. And the next one is to appropriate the funds. Last year when we received we didn't know till later on last year that we were receiving the CHIPS money. We have since received that CHIPS money from the state, but we had only received 95% of what they were going to give us, which happened on I'm assuming every town felt the same thing. A lot of towns or counties throughout New York State didn't even do a lot of their projects last year because originally we were only supposed to receive 80% of that. We have since gotten our reimbursements back from the state for the CHIPS, EWR, and Paved New York, and we have received 95% of that money. But this money was never appropriated into a code last year for the EWR. So we're using it. We're putting it into a code this year, and then it's going to be in turn used to establish a county road project on Harrisburg Road in Stony Creek.
Okay, let's bring items 8 and 9 forward for discussion. Consideration. Mr. Dickinson, is that Mr. Merlino? Mr. Merlino on the second?
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you, Gene. Any discussion? Kevin, this would be the EWR money for 2021, correct?
2020, not 2021.
2020, excuse me. Okay. Ready for the question? All those in favor of approving items 8 and 9 signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Carried. Item 10, Kevin?
The last two items on here are notice of intent to fill positions under my engineering staff. One's the engineer 2, and the second one's the construction specialist. As you all know, I have been recruiting to fill these positions, but we were just having a very difficult time in finding qualified candidates. I'm not sure if we set the bar too high or not, but I definitely want to put a body in the seat that can do something for us here at the county. We actually have since found somebody to fill the engineers 2 position, but since I'm hitting the 6-month stage with these two, I brought them back to committee just to renew them. So I have filled an engineer 1 position. We do have a candidate right now for the engineer 2 position. But I still need to fill eventually that construction specialist position.
All right. And then are we ready to bring items 10 and 11 forward for consideration? Mr. Dickinson? Mr. Thomas on the second. Thank you, Frank. Any discussion? There being none, are we ready for the question? All those in favor of approving items 10 and 11 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. I think we move down to discussion items, federal aid projects for 21, Kevin.
Yes. So this coming year, we have quite a few projects that are coming up for our federal aid projects. We have the 13th Lake Road Bridge. We have Oxbow Moon Hill in Queensbury, which is a pavement preservation project. We also have Call Street culvert replacement, which if any of you travel Call Street, there's an area up on Call Street around Harbin Loop that we call the Big Dip. There's a culvert that's approximately 18 to 20 feet down that we will be replacing that culvert this coming year. I believe that was probably put in almost 25 or 30 years ago. They won't be excavating the road such that we would have to create a detour. They're actually going to do, what's being proposed is to do a push. So they would jack an existing steel pipe around that existing pipe there without having to disturb any of the roadway or anything up top. We also have another project on Call Street and East River Drive, which will be a pavement preservation project. And I believe also later this year will be the Amsterdville Road project up in Pottersville, up in Chestertown. And that's it.
That's enough, isn't it? I can see why you need some of those engineers. What's next, Kevin?
There's no referral and pending items, so that's it.
Okay. I'll open it up to the committee or to those present. Any questions for the committee or for Kevin?
Mr. Conover?
Yes.
This is Gene Marino, Supervisor Town of Lake Luzerne.
Go right ahead, Gene.
I just have to go back to that. Brian mentioned that the county employees and Mr. Hajo did a great job in our town getting us going on that and supporting it. And plus 3 or 4 other towns that we went to visit. Their employees came down and really got our guys going because we went really late into it and we got it done just before the first snowstorm. So I just want to thank them.
Yeah, I think that the whole branding program, both the facility, the county facility, and the mobile truck, I think huge step in the right direction. And to the towns that helped to make that happen, and Kevin, to you and your staff, and to the Fund for Lake George for having put up a grant to help pay for the part of the cost. We certainly thank everybody. I mean, the whole goal there, of course, is to use less salt, deliver less salt into the environment, but also maintain our our highway safety. And I think they're making a big headway in that regard. Now, Kevin, do you want to comment quickly on how it worked out for you and your staff with the brine truck?
As you know, most of you, I had said in the beginning of the year, I was hoping to do 100 miles of roads that the county maintains in the winter months. We have 250 miles worth of roads, but 150 are maintained by the towns within Warren County during the winter. So I was hoping to be able to brine 100 miles worth of roads. I think we averaged probably 60 to 70. We might have hit 100 once. It all comes into play is when the storms come in, how can we get to them? Can we brine them enough ahead of time? Is it going to, be too much moisture, or is it part of the storm going to be rain turned to ice? It doesn't make sense to brine because then the rain just washes the brine off. It was a good year. We collected quite a bit of data this year for the brine that we placed. We're actually having a kind of the end of the year meeting on March 31st with our partners, which is WIT, as well as Viasys, who provides us some of the technical aspects, which is the camera and the trackers on our trucks. So from that meeting, we'll kind of, see what our, what we should have done, what we could have changed, what we will change going into next year. And then next year we'll gear up again and we'll be ready to go. And when you start meeting again with the highway superintendents, Kevin, it'd be interesting to get some feedback from the highway superintendents throughout the county on their experiences last winter. Maybe you can plan on reporting on that at some point in time. Absolutely, especially the town of Stony Creek, because I think they did a phenomenal job at brining this year. Very good.
Yeah, if you don't mind,
go right ahead, Frank.
The town of Stony Creek purchased its own brine maker, and we can produce about 1,000 gallons in about 20 minutes. We have a old fire truck that we get water from a stream to make it with. We have a couple of sprayers, and we've been brining all of our roads. I think this winter was advantageous to brining. It wasn't really that cold, and it wasn't big snowstorms, and it wasn't a lot of ice. So we'll see next year how well it really works. But it saved us on spreading sand. We don't have nowhere near the cleanup that we have had in past years. So.
Frank, do you know how much money you saved?
We're thinking probably 30,000, 40,000.
Wow.
How much of your budget is that?
About 10%.
That's good. You should be able to do better than that.
Well, we're still working out the bugs.
Sure.
Highway crew.
Yeah.
But the highway crew's done a great job. They put it all together, and they've kind of engineered it and purchased the equipment to do it with, and it's working well.
That's great.
All right. Thank you everyone for your comments. That's an important program going forward. And Kevin, we look forward to you reporting on that going forward. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, the last thing I was going to say is I'm also trying to get on the governor's SALT task force. I've been asked by a couple of individuals to put my name in for it. I'm submitting my resume to Senator Steck so that he can possibly put have some say in possibly getting a highway superintendent. And it doesn't necessarily have to be me. It could be somebody from the town of Hague, town of Stony Creek, or whomever. But when the governor put that task force together, there weren't a lot of highway superintendents on that. It was more state individuals and some of the environmental groups as well. But we believe that there should be a highway superintendent, whether it be a town or a county superintendent within the Adirondacks, who could, especially somebody who's been doing brine that could assist. I know that task force was supposed to be reporting back to the governor by September of this year with, any data that it could collected or information. I'm not sure what they're going to be able to report this time. The later that committee gets a start, they're just not going to have all the information. But there is a lot of information that we have, and that working with the Fund for Lake George, they have. The science is already there, so it's not necessarily that the wheel has to be reinvented. It's just to be able to provide that information to the state. So hopefully they pick myself or another county or town highway superintendent in the Adirondacks to assist them on that task force.
Yeah, and also, Kevin, I think going forward, it would be good to be able to help the highway departments that haven't experienced or converted to live edge plows to figure out a way to help everyone. I'm getting terrific reports on the live edge plows as well, and the kind of result that we're getting with those live edge plows. But there is an expense associated with that, and it's very difficult for some communities to bear that expense. So go right ahead.
Yeah, one of the things that we're looking at now is when we're purchasing our new tandem trucks, we've actually included on any of our new tandems to have live edge plows. They're based on your existing plows that you're getting with a wing, and then the live edge plows, you're probably spending anywhere from $7,000 to $10,000, maybe $12,000 more to have those live edge plows on those trucks.
Yeah, we could figure out a way to help some of the smaller towns at least acquire a few of those live edge plows. That would be an excellent thing. I don't know if we need to look at our reimbursement formula. Maybe there's something there you could talk to the budget officer about, or maybe some conversion there that might be able to help the municipalities convert over. But I'm getting great reports on the live edge plows as well. And I know the other towns think well of them as well. So, all right. There being no more discussion on public works, we will move right into solid waste. Without objection, thank you.
Mr. Merlino, Supervisor Merlino had a question.
Mr. Conover?
Yep, go right ahead, Gene.
Sorry to interrupt, but what you were saying about the live edge plow, I was one of them back a couple of years ago, complained that we couldn't get one because we weren't in the basin. But we were fortunate to buy a used one this year. And I'll tell you, we tested it on a mile stretch of road. We plowed it with our regular plows and then came back and plowed it with the live edge. People couldn't believe how much more we took up. So it makes it, you don't have to run around sometimes and go back and get it a second time. But they do work. So it's a good move that the county got into that stuff.
Yeah, if we could just figure out a way to help everyone convert what they want to convert over, that would be excellent. It would really be good for the environment. It would be good in terms of highway safety. So if we could figure something out that way, that would be excellent, Kevin. Because there is an expense, especially if the town's already has a tandem with a regular blade. There's whatever it costs, $20,000-$30,000 to convert over. That's not a small amount of money. So, all right, then let's move right into solid waste.
First thing we have is under action agenda items and new business items is a request to create a new position for a solid waste recycle and compliance coordinator. This is basically, I talked about this the last committee meeting, and it's actually the referral to create a position. Once I get this position in place and get it advertised, is have this individual start managing and overseeing the local solid waste management plan to enforce the local laws of 1991 and just to assist us in anything in the future that we're going to do with recycling and solid waste. I brought to committee last month the position and the requirements. I received no comments from anyone, and then I informed everyone last committee meeting that I was working with Jackie on coming up with a salary. You'll see the salaries on the second page of your agenda under the requesting of the new position. It's an out of unit grade 8, and this would be $43,000 a year, $43,605 a year.
All right, let's, I think we should bring this to the floor for discussion as an action item. Mr. Thomas on the motion, Mr. Dickinson on the second. Let's have some discussion on this. Dennis, does anyone want to comment on this? Have any questions for Kevin?
I will, yes.
Frank, go right ahead.
I think this is a position that in the long run will save not only the county, but our residents, but our towns a considerable amount of money if it's done properly. So I think it's money well spent.
Yeah, Andrea?
I agree. It's a step in the right direction. I'm really pleased that we're getting to this so quickly. So thank you, Kevin.
Sure. Any other comments at this stage? Amanda?
Mr. Bruno would like to speak?
Sure. Supervisor Bruno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it might be helpful on this request form if there was somewhat of a description. It doesn't need to be terribly detailed, but as to the responsibilities and the duties of the person filling this position.
We can get, Kevin, why don't you, why don't you just send out that job description one more time to the whole board?
I will do.
All right, and
I sent it out last committee meeting.
Okay, I apologize. I didn't see it.
no, that's all right, and it would have been good if it had been attached as well for today. I agree.
I do have a sense of
Any other comments? Well, I just want to say, Frank, I agree with you completely. Andrea, I agree with you completely. I think in the long haul, this is really needed, and I think it could really benefit the county and the municipalities going forward. And so now, just a question of a point of reference, Amanda, from this committee, does this go to finance? Does it go to personnel? Does it go to personnel and finance? Where does it go from here?
It'll go to personnel first, and then to finance.
Okay. So that's good to know. Are we ready for the question then? All those in favor of recommending the creation and funding of this position signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much. Woody? I'm sorry. Kevin, what do we have next?
I don't think those are done together. So the first one was to create the position. The second resolution would be the notice of intent to fill that position.
Okay. Now let's move this one as well. Mr. Dickinson, Mr. Thomas on the second. Thank you. Are we ready for the question? All those in favor of filling the new position created signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Aye.
Kevin?
Next items we have are the discussion items. The first one is the update for the local solid waste management plan. We made all the corrections, as I discussed last committee. So it's back into DEC for their approval. Once they come back with the approval for the draft, I will bring it back through committee for us to approve, the county to approve the local solid waste management plan. And the final thing on there kind of goes to the referrals. Under the referrals, I had the position of the solid waste recycle and compliance coordinator, as well as the permitting. I'm working with the county attorney's office right now, and I also handed out that permitting application to the committee last month. I can hand it out again as well, just to see if anybody had any comments on it. But I'm working with Mary's office right now to make sure legally that we're correct with everything that we have in the permit. And then once we get this individual on board, we would start issuing permits for our solid waste haulers throughout the county.
Any questions for Mr. Hajos? There being none? What's next, Kevin?
That's it. I talked about the permits, but I also talked about the referrals at the same time. That's all I have.
All right. Any other matters to come before the Solid Waste Committee today?
We do have some public comment.
Sure. Go right ahead, Don.
This is from Diane Collins. Says a couple of announcements. Thank you, Kevin, for having your draft proposed hauler permit rules and data reporting requirements sent to us for comments. We'd like to offer a major suggestion. We're concerned about annual reporting. We'd strongly recommend quarterly reporting. Annual reporting would make it extremely hard to track trends and detect right away if haulers are separating recyclables and where they are taken. If haulers do not keep track, no one might know for a whole year. End-year totals would make it harder to line up weight slips and invoices to corroborate their data report numbers. Getting the data quarterly would also allow for needed clarification. Second announcement, zero waste movement, as you know, has been sweeping the country and opening doors to entrepreneurs transforming our throwaway economy. Our committee invites the Public Works Committee members, in fact, the whole board, to the free Zoom webinar, Creating New Jobs and Enterprise Through Zero Waste on Wednesday, April 7th, 2021 from 2 to 3:30 p.m. Speakers will be 4 of the country's most respected leaders in the field of reuse and repair. Not throwing away recyclables would financially benefit Warren County municipalities, and local economic growth and new jobs are of vital interest to all of us. I'll be emailing the webinar flyer to all of you. Thank you, Diane Collins, Zero Waste Planning Committee member.
Thank you for those comments, and I'm sure the Kevin will take the reporting recommendation under advisement.
Yes, I will.
Any other comments? Don, anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else come before the committee?
Chairman Conover, could I make a comment? This is Supervisor Bramer.
Well, of course, Supervisor Bram, go right ahead.
Thank you so much. I want to echo what Diane Collins said about the quarterly reporting. I think that's a good idea to make sure we stay on top of what is happening with the haulers. And I wanted to ask Kevin if he could just elaborate a little bit more on the solid waste plan about what is happening. Did you say that it's coming back to the board for approval? And
Yes,
did the state require any changes since the last time we?
No, I brought to the last committee that they had asked for a few changes to be made. They were minor changes. Some of them we actually left a section out when we submitted it back in, which was on electronics. So we have added that back in. The section we had in there previously discussed that when the last solid waste management plan, we weren't even doing anything with electronics yet. So I updated that section. There's a couple other minor sections that we had to update. I think one of the questions that they asked was whether or not we take any solid waste in from outside the county. We do not, unless some town here can tell me that they're taking something else in from, but we do not. So that's something else that we had updated as well. I think they were thinking that the waste to energy facility was in our county. It's not. It's in another county. So with that being said, we made those corrections. We submitted it back to DEC. If they approve the draft, which we haven't necessarily approved anything on it yet, but if they approve the draft that's into them, then we will pass a resolution adopting that local solid waste management plan, and then we'll submit it back to them with that resolution.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
It's nice that they got to it before like 10 years were up.
Yeah. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree.
On that note,
I see this as an evolving situation. I think this is a moving issue, so to speak, a moving subject, and I think that we're going to be embedded in this, rightfully so, for quite some time, and hopefully good things are going to come out of it as well. At least that's my hope.
I hope that we do that too, Supervisor Conover. I was going to mention, I thought I saw something about electronics recycling day. Did that get mentioned?
No.
Is it coming up? No? Not in
I didn't
April?
say anything about it.
Are we hosting
We're having
one?
our Household Hazardous Waste Day coming up soon. Yes, they will be in May, and I believe it's May and June. One will be in Warrensburg, and the other one will be in Queensbury.
Thank you.
Yep.
Is the state, Kevin, just a point of reference on that, is the state still help us financially with that?
They do. It's a 50-50, so they'll pay half of whatever the cost may be from those Household Hazardous Waste Days.
Sure.
I will send out to the committee as well as to the board when those days are. I think they're already advertised on our website. Yeah, I believe they're on there already to know which days are and which places and which days they are.
Yeah, I think that's a very important program that we run there, and I think it's going to become even more important as time goes on. And the days of just taking some of that waste and just putting it down the drain are long gone, or at least should be long gone. So I think that, go ahead, Kevin.
One of the things that we have recently read that came through DEC is that they are going to eliminate the paint collection. They're going to do something else with paint collection. So they will not reimburse us anymore. They will this year, but I believe after this year, they will not be reimbursing us for paint collection anymore. They're going to do another program for the collection of paint.
All right, then. The chair will entertain a motion to adjourn. Mr. Dickinson on the motion, Mr. Merlino on the second. Thank you, Gene. I can see you now. I couldn't see you before. All those in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned. Thank you.
You guys want to go down to the jail now?